welcome back to another edition of Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about Michigan football and Michigan basketball. I am Andrew Burkle, of course joined by our Michigan football and basketball beat writer, Tony Garcia. And Tony, it's time to say the three best words in college football podcasting. It is, or I guess I should say it's game week, because I guess it is game week would be 4 words. So I'm going to go back to 3 words. It's game week.
Yeah, it does not matter how many words it is, because it's sweet and feels good all the same. I mean, it's the most cliche in podcasting and in football talk, but it's actually true. Here in Ann Arbor today, I woke up for the first time in 4 months, and it's 55 degrees outside. Since I got back from Europe in like May, it's been like hot, which I love. But I mean, when you wake up with this, I mean, not only does my dog love it because he's not panting on our walks or when we go to the park, but you just know what's around the corner. I went on some New Mexico podcasts and shows earlier this week. I mean, we're messaging people about setting up things with Oklahoma. Like, it's a 12-week season with a couple bye weeks, but I mean, this thing moves quickly. So once you're in week 1, I mean, you're in it. There's no ramp up period. You got to be ready to go from week 1. And I like to think we are.
I don't know if it's just like being on the, more sports side of it. Obviously, I'm an editor, so I'm doing with Michigan State and Lions, but the college football season just flies by in my time here at the Free Press, where it's like, it's a grind. Don't get me wrong. I know you're working super hard. I think I work pretty hard too, but like, you blink and the season's over, because you just get into like, okay, that game ended. We're looking forward to the next game. Okay, that game started, and just, it's gone before you know it. So enjoy it while it's here. And we got plenty to talk about. Well, we're going to hit a little bit of everything. We have a meaty show for you guys today. We're going to talk about New Mexico. We're going to talk about what we learned from Sherrone's first press conference. We're going to talk about some fun over-unders using a little bit of historical context just to kind of get a gauge of where we might be at with this team. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up with some college football picks, a perfect refresher, just a little bit of a national look for you guys for what's going to be a bomb week 1 of games. I mean, we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, even Sunday night. And then there's another game on Monday as well. We're not going to talk about that one as much, but man, it's a great slate of college football. And Tony, ready to get into it?
I could not be more ready.
Okay, so like I mentioned, Sherrone Moore had his before the season press conference. Technically, it was kind of like the week 1 availability, but man, he got more open and honest than he typically does in these things, right, Tony? So give me your 3 thoughts from Michigan's press conference here.
Yes, no. First, golf clap for answering the depth chart questions, which so often he does not. And it's not just Sherrone, it's around college football. It's not like they provided an official depth chart, which would have been option A, but option B, answering the questions, I will settle for. But yeah, I mean, I think we have to start with the news that we've talked about all year, that we've talked about since he committed last November, that everybody knew was happening, that we got word of was happening Friday evening or Sunday evening, and reported Monday morning before Sherrone did. But that is Bryce Underwood is, of course, the starting quarterback. They got somewhere between like 10 and 15 million reasons why they made him the starting quarterback. But that's not the only reason why, right? Like, he is also the most talented player in the room. Like I said, I mean, we've discussed it on this podcast if you've listened for over the last few months. Just watching him work out over the summer, even though it was just one day in Detroit. I mean, it was like a 93-degree day, and this dude was just putting in work, just big arm, mobile, moxie. He just feels like a leader, and he looks like a defensive end. And he just turned 18 like 9 days ago. So none of that hurts. It's just, I mean, he's ready. He's the guy. There was absolutely no question about where this was going to be. And now it's just about how comfortable he feels in being perhaps the youngest player literally on this team, but being the alpha, the leader, the one that everyone looks to for guidance. So it's a weird dichotomy there, but it's one that he's going to have to navigate. And I mean, he has not been short on confidence. I mean, he was just on Big Ten Network last week saying, you've all seen freshmen, but nobody's seen a freshman like me. He said his goal is to be an NFL Hall of Famer. So, I mean, this guy's eyes are forward. He's mentioned Heisman before. And so yet when I did meet him, and one of the things Michigan players and coaches say, he is like quietly humble. Like, none of those comments seem humble. It's weird. He's like very boisterous to the media. I think he's like outwardly projecting confidence, but he's not like cocky or arrogant against or towards his teammates, at least in the interactions I've had with him. He's been pretty level-headed. So I think if you're a Michigan fan, you want him to be confident, and he certainly is.
Yeah, it's just so weird. Like, as you're talking about it, especially you mentioned the dollar figure, doesn't this totally have the feel of the franchise drafts the rookie quarterback, and coming in, everyone's like, well, is he going to start right away? There's always the forever debate. There's the Mahomes approach where he sits out the year, or there's the Peyton Manning, you throw him in the mix right away. And it doesn't just totally have that feel where it's like, hey, this is our guy. We're paying him the money. We invested in him, whether it's a draft pick or recruiting time, whatever you want to call it. This is the guy. We're going to roll with him right off the bat. And at this point, it's like, why not, right? I think he gives you at least as good of a chance of winning. And there was some news about his backup situation that I think may color a little bit about why this was an even easier decision, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, part one, the reason, I do agree with the NFL comp, but Bryce Underwood did not sign a contract, right? Like to the university. He can transfer after this year. And so that's why, unlike a rookie where you groom him, like an Alex Smith is not on the roster, right? So where you can groom him behind a proven guy who's ready, there's just no time for that. And B, which you just alluded to, there's no proven guy who's ready on this team. I think that much has been proven when Sherrone Moore named Jaden Davis the number 2 on the team. So Mikey Keene was brought in from Fresno State. He's clearly not healthy. He is not. Michigan still has not disclosed his injury, but I've had not seen any clips of him working with the team. Anytime his name comes up, they talk about him working back or looking more like himself, or he's going to get in the mix soon. This guy is not ready for football. And he's hosting the Champions Circle affiliate, like Champions Media, I think it's called, just launched like its own, like for athletes, by athletes, like podcast or media channel outlet. Mikey Keene is going to be like hosting one of these shows. I think after every game, that does not scream to me at all like someone who is here as a serious, like anymore as a serious candidate to be the starting quarterback. You think Bryce Underwood has time to be hosting a show once a week? Forget about it. So there's that. And then Chip Lindsey last night on Inside Michigan Football, Michigan's offensive coordinator, was talking about how Jake Garcia throws a really good ball, but just this is an offense. Even though Lindsey brought in a new style, this is this is like a team and an insulated sort of situation that Jaden Davis has been in. This is now like sort of almost, it feels like year 3, right? Because he came in at December last year. And then, while it is just year 2, and it feels like he's been here. He's been here since the Rose Bowl, right? Like that feels like ages ago. So he's been here a long time. But yeah, Jaden Davis is the backup. That surprised me. Tells me something about Mikey Key's health. Tells me something about Jake Garcia's understanding of the system. Because I remember talking at that Rose Bowl to Michigan's former offensive coordinator, Kirk Campbell, when he was still the quarterback's coach before he got promoted. This is how long ago we're talking about. And he was talking, I was looking at Jaden Davis's throwing motion. I know I've mentioned it on here before, and it's like, man, like that does not look like a succinct, like throwing motion. There's a lot of hitches in it. It's pretty loopy. He's bringing the ball. You can't see my arm in the visual, but it's almost down by his hip before he comes up. You normally want to bring that thing right to your ear and fire. And this guy is like, it's almost like a cricket motion. That's like an exaggeration, but it is really long. And that's asking for strip sacks. That's asking for just like more time for a defender to break on the ball. It's not as quick. And I have not seen that really get fixed in the little glimpses. Certainly in the spring game when I was watching and in the little glimpses we've gotten of him during the fall. So the hope is Bryce Underwood stays perfectly healthy. Maybe he has a little bit of learning curve, but he just kind of goes on and goes about his way. I know that was kind of lengthy, but I figured the quarterback was the most important topic at this time.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a complicated situation, but we'll see it play out. And it could end up being a complete nothing burger. It's kind of like this Hendon Hooker, Kyle Allen situation, not to bring it back to the NFL again, but it's like, that's, it could end up not mattering at all if Goff is healthy, right? That's kind of the hope is for Michigan, is that, hey, we don't even know who our backup quarterback is, right? That's what Michigan fans are hoping. So, all right, you had some other takeaways as well from this press conference where, like you said, Sherrone got a little bit more open and honest than the Michigan standard. So tell me what else we learned there.
Yeah, the offensive line, at least for now, is set. So left tackle, it's going to be Evan Link. That battle really sorted itself out in an unfortunate sort of way when Andrew Babalola injured his knee. He's going to be undergoing surgery. It will be season ending. We don't know. They haven't mentioned meniscus, MCL, ACL. Usually it means ACL, but we're not even going to speculate. It's a season-ending knee surgery, so do with that what you will. At left guard, it's the captain, Gio El Hadi. If there has been one person who is cemented to a role since since the preseason. It's been El-Hadi, so no question there. Greg Crippen, who is a fifth-year senior, has won the center job, which we also knew before this week. But for the first time, this is the first time he will enter a season as a starter. He's been at Michigan 5 years. So, I mean, think about how long that's been. He lost the battle to Dominique Gadice a season ago before sort of winning it back mid-year as Michigan was trying to shuffle things and find some solutions. Right guard is actually Brady Norton. He was played to tackle at Sacramento State D2 a season ago, but on like 600 plays or something, he only allowed 4 pressures. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I mean, it was just like an absurd rate, like only like 4 total quarterback pressures in the season. I think like 2 or 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken, were in one game against maybe like Montana State. I should have looked it up again to double check, but I mean, they move him from tackle to guard. And then right tackle, Andrew Sprague. He got the start against Alabama last season, his first career start after he battled injury pretty much all of 2024. And they're expecting him to hold down that tackle position. Now, Nate Afobe, who lost out on the battle to Brady Norton, Sherrone says he will see time in this game. Blake Frazier, who is a swing tackle. They had him working on the left side originally, then they brought him to the right side. I tried to ask Sherrone, as I was asking about the starting line in Babalola's situation, if Blake had moved back left or right, but it was my second question. I'd already used the first question. And once you get a second question, you don't really get a third, and he didn't hear the part 2 of question 2. So I didn't get an answer there. So we'll see if he works in behind Link or behind Sprague there. And I think the last 2 names that were really mentioned are Jake Granera and Lawrence Hattar. Hattar is the transfer from Ferris State, multi-time national champion there. He's sort of on the interior, but I don't know if either of them are really going to see the field, at least until there is a reason to, right? Like they're not just going to work them in the game because they want to see them. Seems like those guys lost out on the job unless Michigan gets up 4 touchdowns fourth quarter, right? 5 touchdowns fourth quarter. And it's like, all right, like we'll sort of bring the 2s in and let them get some run, but they're not going to just get worked in there. So offensive line has to be better than last year. Just a quick note, according to Pro Football Focus, last year, Michigan's offensive line ranked number 88 in the nation in pass blocking and number 71 in run blocking. So 72 is exactly average, like of every team. So like a 6-6 type team, like a dead middle of the road team in all of college football. And Michigan was essentially right there in one aspect and like one standard deviation lower than that in the other. And prior to that, the previous 3 seasons, you would expect that the numbers would be better given how great the unit was. But I mean, they were always somewhere between number sort of 49 and number 10 in run and in pass blocking. Like their averages were in the mid 20s and mid 30s. So top third of the nation. I think they were 29th overall in run blocking during that time and 43rd in pass blocking. So they were way, way better, obviously, and need to take a step forward again, especially with a freshman quarterback.
So my biggest takeaway from all that, are you the guy who in the press conference does, I have two-part questions for you, sir?
No, I always lead with one. I just ask one question because once they're done with the answer, whoever you're talking to, there's like a little bit of a pause before Dave Abloff or Chad Shepard, Michigan's SIDs who are sort of affiliating, find their next person. And then you just slide the next one right in. And just one more real quick. And so you ask your second.
So you're just a little sly with it.
Yeah, I'm a consistent 2-part question. But I mean, if we're going to get 20 minutes with you once a week, other than the 8 minutes we get with you after the game where emotions are super heightened, I mean, I got like 15 questions I have for you, right? I'm trying to get in 2. Got to do what you got to do. Although I will say, I'm not going to mention them by name on this podcast, but there are 2 I have not gotten flack from Dave, like even joking flack from Dave for my multiple part questions. There are 2 or 3 other people who consistently, he's like, all right, here comes a 3-part question. Here comes 4 questions. I've never even gotten that joke. So I think I'm still in the clear for now.
Okay, so you're cooking pretty well. I call it the Chris Solari. Chris loves the double question from your time up in East Lansing there.
And it takes 30 seconds to get the question out, right? It's not even a succinct question. I mean, so it feels like 5. I mean, we love you, Chris.
But hey, I'm sure he's sitting in the same boat as you. So anyways, okay. last but not least, you want to give us 3 surprises here. Let's be quick with this, and then we'll take a quick break. And we got some fun segments on the other side.
Yeah, ripping these off. So Channing Goodwin, wide receiver number 3, true freshman. He went to high school with Jaden Davis. This is something you thought might belong to Fred Moore, maybe Anthony Simpson, the transfer from UMass, but Channing Goodwin, wide receiver 3. Andrew Marsh, the highest rated receiver since Michigan recruited Donovan Peoples-Jones out of Cass Tech in 2017. He will start, but not a wide receiver. They're getting him in on kickoff. I kind of relate this to Jordan Marshall last year. Like, the room is really full and you're just a little bit down that depth chart, but you're talented. And so we want to get you on the field. We want to get the ball in your hands in some capacity. So there's that. And then maybe the most surprising is running back 3. So Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes, 1A, 1B, in whichever way you want to put it. We'll sort of find out which way that is on Saturday. But RB3, just in case one of them goes down, in case you need a pass blocking guy, in case, whatever. You always need one extra guy in a room. Michigan brought in a couple of transfers right after the spring game because they said they wanted to boost their running back depth. Well, CJ Hester from UMass has already left the program, and John Volker from Princeton was not even mentioned by Sherrone Moore as one of the 3 people in the mix for that RB3 spot. They were Bryson Kudzall, who was the RB3 in the spring game, had like 105 yards rushing, was pretty nice. Micah Capana, who I expect to see on kickoff as well. He's a redshirt freshman as well, and he's pretty electric. But the guy who they said right now is RB3 is Jasper Parker, a 3-star recruit, I believe out of Stockbridge, Georgia, and a true freshman, just got here. And he's evidently been popping in practice. So thought that was interesting. And that's what you can look out for against New Mexico this week.
All right, cool, man. We'll take a quick break here, and then we have some over-unders for this season to get to on the other side. Welcome back, everyone. Here we go with a fun idea that Tony kind of did come up with. I kind of helped him come up with some historical context to add on to there. So we looked back at, some notable Michigan seasons, mostly in the recent history here, and tried to come up with maybe some statistical barometers that we think might be around where some of the players on Michigan's team will hit this year. So obviously we're working Bryce Underwood in there. We're going to look at, touchdowns, receptions, or receiving touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, yards. We'll get to them here one by one, but we're going to start with Bryce Underwood, obviously, because we have to. So we set the over-under for him at 2,719 yards. That is the amount of yards that J.J. McCarthy had in his first season starting. So obviously he was a sophomore. He had the slight advantage from the game reps from the year before, but it was a kind of more run first team, right? So do you think that's a number that Bryce can hit in his freshman season?
Yeah, I kind of wish that, this was like you said, we helped curate the segment together, and I wish that we had chosen a different number for Bryce, because I just feel like that's really high for a true freshman. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's a lot. I think that might also include like a postseason game, and they went to a Big Ten title game that year. So, but it is what it is. We wanted to come up with the first year for the last 5-star elite quarterback, and JJ set the bar pretty high. So I'm going under. That's almost 240 yards a game in the regular season for Bryce. That's just too high. I think Michigan wants to be more controlled, more ground and pound. So I'm going to go under on that.
Yeah, I think it's not totally unfair. We could have thrown Cade McNamara out there, who obviously Michigan fans, I'm sure, have been keeping tabs on him. It's not exactly like he's been Tom Brady since he left Michigan here. So I think McCarthy does feel fair because of the ground and pound nature of that team. However, they did open it up quite a bit, as you remember from like the TCU game, of course, was the infamous one. That was a team who could throw the ball quite a bit, right? And I think that both of us agree that it's going to be more ground and pound, maybe a bit more ball control, and not as dominant, right? As that team that pretty easily made it to the college football playoff, right? So I think that that's a bit of a too high of a bar for Bryce in year one, and I'm also going to go with the under. Now, we mentioned McNamara. So his total in the year 2021, when Michigan kind of had that breakthrough with the win over Ohio State, he threw 15 touchdowns that season. Obviously, McCarthy was mixing in every once in a while, but that was his job. He was on the field for the huge majority of the time. And that feels like a number that's maybe a bit more gettable.
Yeah, that's why I'm going over on that one. And now, like, I don't want people to mistake, like, bringing in Chip Lindsey, Michigan does want to air the ball out, right? They do want to throw the ball down the field, certainly more than last year. But it's just at the same time, you are insulating a quarterback, right? There's only 6 home games. There's only 2 like true cupcake games, not 3. Like, you got a road game at Oklahoma. So there's just a lot of little factors why it's hard to get up to that 2,700 number. But 15 touchdowns, that's not much more than 1 a game, right? Like, if say you get 3 against Central Michigan, and 2 against New Mexico, then you only need 1 touchdown in every other game. Now, these are passing touchdowns, right? Where, I mean, I know they were for Cade. We're counting passing touchdowns, because if it's over under on total touchdowns, this is the easiest over in my mind. But even passing touchdowns, I will still take the over on 15.
Yep, I'm going on the over as well. It seems like that they'll be able to get to that number. I mean, it's obviously, it's no, it's not rock. It's not exact science, right? But I think that seems like a number that he'll be able to get. And like you said, there's going to be a concerted effort to air it out more this year than in years past. We say that while also saying, do you think they're going to be a ground and pound team? I think we're expecting more shots, right? Which could lead to more touchdowns. So I'm going on the over with that as well. If you mentioned it, I missed it. Did you say the school record was 25 and JJ had 22 in both his seasons?
Yes, no, I wanted you to mention that because I had meant to. So I sent you that in our little chat here.
There
so
we
yes,
go.
yes, no, exactly. Just for context, right? I mean, it's like, because JJ in a college football playoff offense that had a fantastic offensive line that had maybe more proven weapons, he only had 22 touchdowns, right? So 50, I mean, it's not
it doesn't sound like that many, does it?
It doesn't. But I mean, the difference between, Blake Corum one of those years ran for 28. Right. So I mean, like, between the two, they had 50 touchdowns, and JJ ran for like 3 or 4 each year also. So no, I mean, Michigan's record ever, all time, is 25 passing touchdowns. That is, if you call it a 12-game season, that's 2.1 touchdowns per game. I mean, nobody has ever averaged more than 2, and that's only been done twice. So it's like, it sounds easy.
We all kind of have NFL brain, right? When those guys are up around 50 touchdown passes, and you're like, oh, that's a lot. That'd be on the super high end, but that's kind of what you think
35
about.
To 40. Like, 35,
yeah,
40.
35, 40 easy, right? So that's kind of, I think, why it sounds like so few, but especially for a team like Michigan, who's historically more of a running team than an air and out team, with a few exceptions, 25 is not that crazy. But I don't think either of us expect Bryce to hit even 22. So, because like we said, we expect them to be more of a run squad. So speaking of rushing, we set the over under for this year for the leading rusher on the team, not both them combined, but the leading rusher to be at 948 yards. That's the number that Khalil Mullings hit last year in his role as kind of the main guy. But, obviously Edwards got his fair share of touches too. But do you expect either of the dudes this year to hit that number?
This might be my favorite number, like 948 Khalil Mullings. Like, that's just such a fair comp, right? Like, you're not putting up any of these ridiculous Blake Corum seasons that respectfully, nobody's really going to touch for a while. I mean, he holds most records in Michigan football history, but just for the yards, I am going to go under. There might be kind of a theme here with this yards touchdowns thing I have going on. And that's because Michigan isn't even calling them 1-2. They're calling them 1A, 1B. And so with the combination of just wanting both running backs to share the load, I could see each guy getting 15 touches and 80 yards a game, right? And now if you juxtapose that across 12 games, that'd be 960 yards. So you say, Tony, that's over, right? All it takes is one game under that average by 13 yards one time in 12 weeks, and you're at the under. And then somebody could get hurt. They could get benched in the fourth as they try to work in a running back 3, right? And say maybe one of them has a huge game in one day and another has a huge game the other day, and each are sort of limited. It's just because they are so even, it's hard. Both are capable of going over this, but I think they want to split it so evenly. I wouldn't be surprised if both had over 700 yards, but neither reached 950.
Yeah, and looking back on last year, first of all, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'll just say it now. We have 12 touchdowns for the rushing touchdowns leader for the team, which was also Mullings from last year. I'm going to go under on both of them because I don't think that's a knock. I think Michigan's rushing attack could be as good or possibly better, probably better, because of last year's incompetent passing attack, right? It made everything so tough, and they were able to run the ball in spite of that. But if everything is clicking on all cylinders this year, it should be a lot easier for them to establish that ground game instead of just pure willpower. That said, Mullins was the guy especially by the end of the year. Obviously, Edwards still had some moments. Of course, we know that he was a big game guy. But you watch, snap to snap to snap, it was Mullins' job. And I think it's going to be closer to 50-50 than it was last year. Obviously, Edwards was on the cover of NCAA football. Like 10 years from now, we'll look back. People probably won't even remember as much of how they'll probably think, oh yeah, they had both Mullins and Edwards. But really that was Mullins' job. So I'm going to predict that it's going to be a bit more 50-50. And for that reason, I'm going to go under on both guys. But or under on 12, neither guy to hit 12, because I think both guys could be in double digits, maybe 10, 11 even. That's possible. But over 12 feels a little high to me.
Here's why I'm going to disagree with you. And I'm fine. We've mentioned this on podcasts before. We agree a little too much. It doesn't sometimes it doesn't make for the Stephen A podcast, the School of Podcasting, but I'm going over. That's a ridiculous take, Andrew. See, now we're getting fired up. But just because they're going to be balanced does not mean that they're not each going to have a role, right? Like eventually you'll find sort of a third down back. You'll find a short yardage back. You'll find a goal line back. And I think once Michigan establishes one of them as that guy, then say that Jordan Marshall is the starter and Justice Haynes is the goal line guy. Actually, for what it's worth, I think in my mind that'll kind of be reversed. That is the way I think it'll end up working out. But whichever way, potato. Michigan is going to be in a lot of goal to go situations this season, and you just kind of figure there will be a guy who takes the lead there. 12 touchdowns. I mean, Michigan's leading rusher has had more than 12 touchdowns each of the last 4 years. I didn't check 2019, and I could. I mean, 2012 or 2020, I think doesn't count. That was a 6 touchdown season. It's not just because they were 2-4 and a bad team, but I said 6 touchdown season, 6 game season. So that doesn't count, but I think Michigan goes over. Like somebody's going over 12 touchdowns.
That's fair. But I guess Underwood looks like a defensive end, but we don't really know how much they're going to use him in the rushing attack. I mean, it's probably safe to say it's going to be more than Davis Warren, right? But I think he could vulture a few goal line carries here and there, maybe on bootlegs and rolling out and getting that head of steam. Then I don't expect them to use him like, Cam Newton, for God's sake, but definitely more than Davis Warren or Cade McNamara,
Quickly, Zach Charbonnet, 2019, 11 touchdowns. So just under there. So I think it'll be interesting.
I think we nailed the rushing comps here. The quarterbacks were a little tougher because we just don't know what to expect. But I really like those numbers we came up with for the rushing attack.
It's because Kalel was a great guy. He's a great guy. He's a great player. No, he's just a great guy, great player. And he had to sort of work for it, right? Like you said, the Bryce is in such a unique situation. Like some of these guys, by the time you're looking at their good seasons, like I was looking at Jake Rudock, for example. Jake Rudock threw for 3,000 yards. We can't ask Bryce to throw for 3,000 yards, but I didn't want to compare him to Cade in Cade's first year, at least not in the passing yards, because I wanted to do like the hyped guy coming in, and this is what that guy did year one, even if they were at slightly different points in their career arc. I mean, that's what maybe what we should have done is Chad Henne in 2004,
But football was so different back then, dude. It's almost like impossible to even compare, the game is so different. Don't you think? That's kind of where my head was at as far as keeping it in the Jim Harbaugh family of offenses.
Yeah. And also Chad Henne had Steve Breston and Mario Manningham and Braylon Edwards. So, or maybe not Manningham, Avant, one of those two. You had Breston and and Edwards for sure. So I don't think Michigan has those same targets. Yeah.
Speaking of targets, let's do a little bit of receiving props here, and then we'll do the over under for the wins total for the season here. So Donovan McCulley seems to be the guy. I know that you're maybe slightly higher on him than I am, but we set the over-under for receiving yards at 648 yards because that is what McCulley hit in 2023 at IU. So remember, he sat out last year and ended up, there was rumors of him coming to Michigan for a long time, ended up doing so. So he was not on that team last year that had the magical run. However, he did rack up 648 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2023 at Indiana. So do you think he is able to top that number both from receiving yards and touchdowns in his first year in Maize and Blue?
I'm going yes to the yards. 648 yards is 54 yards per game across a 12-game season. I think your wideout one, who's going to be getting at least 7-8 targets a game, can average 55 yards a game. That does not seem like a huge ask. Ronnie Bell hit it. Roman Wilson hit it. I mean, a lot of even though Michigan hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Jeremy Gowan in 2013, more often than not, their number one receiver is above 600 yards. And they gave McCulley the number one jersey. So they think highly of him as the number one receiver. And just quickly on the touchdowns, I'm going to go under. I'm being very inconsistent here because I say McCulley is going over yards, but Bryce is going under yards. And I say McCulley is going under touchdowns while Bryce is going over touchdowns. So we're really going to have to thread this needle here. But it's just, I think Bryce is going to have, just because he's going over 15, I think he'll have maybe 18 touchdowns, right? 17, 18, maybe 19. Is Donovan really going to have 1/3 of them by himself? No checkdowns, no Samaj coming out of the slot. Channing Goodwin, he was targeted 9 times in the spring game. He's a starter, right? So, I mean, they're 6, 7 deep in the wide receiver room. I think McCulley is going to be that guy. And that's not even to mention the tight ends, right? Marlon Klein, Hogan Hansen, and on and on. So, while I do think McCulley will be a red zone threat, 7 touchdowns is kind of a lot of touchdowns for someone you think is only going to throw 17 or 18. So I'm going under there.
Now we're both being inconsistent because I said that, I'm maybe a little lower on McCulley, but than you are. And now I'm going over on both of them. As you were talking, I kind of talked myself into it. I like him to go over on yards because frankly, it's not that many. I mean, looking back to 2022, Ronnie Bell led the team with 889 yards and Cornelius Johnson had 499. So it's not that high. I think that you could easily hit yourself on the over with that. And mostly the reason I'm predicting this is it's short on the rest of the wide receiver room. I mean, I saw a lot of these guys play last year. You didn't have McCulley in there as the big play, the bigger threat. But I don't really know if I believe in the rest of this receiver room. I'm very much in the show me, don't tell me type of situation with this Michigan room after the overhype last year. So I'm going to take the over on McCulley because I think he is going to be the guy. I don't know if he's going to be, as good as some of the other elite receivers in the conference, but I am going to take the over on both his receiving yards and touchdowns because I think that he's going to stick out as the clear top guy. Now, whether that could actually have a negative effect throughout the season because teams are going to start, double teaming him, taking him away. At least you have Marlon Klein, especially in the red zone, to help kind of take away some eyes. Long story short, I'm going over on both, but it's not, I don't feel great about either one. As you can tell, I flipped my answer in the Google Doc 4 times, but ultimately I'm going with the over because of those reasons I just spelled out. So real quick, we did kind of jot down some sack leaders. Last year, Josiah Stewart, he had 8.5 sacks on the number there. So, that's kind of another one we were looking at. You hit the under, correct? And you want to go real quick on why you thought that?
I mean, Josiah Stewart is, I just think under. I just don't think anyone on Michigan is going to have 9 sacks this year. No one individual.
Okay. I'm going to go over on that because I think some of the attention is going to kind of was going towards Graham, and Grant might be a little more spread out. And I think some of the defensive ends might just be able to get there a little bit more. So I'm going to go over. But again, it's kind of a very deep defensive line and not really the dude. So I can see why you went under on that. So, all right, real quick, wrapping it up. The wins total has been set at 9.5. Obviously, I think you won't find very many Michigan fans would be disappointed with a 10-2 season, right? So it feels a tick high to me, and I don't really know why, because you go through the schedule and it's certainly possible, but 10 wins, it feels like that would be a huge success to me, and not necessarily to knock the team, but you're a true freshman quarterback. You have a road game at Oklahoma, and you have a game against Ohio State and some other dicey ones in there as well. So 10-2 feels like, I'm not going to say best case scenario, but that certainly is on the high end to me.
I did a best case, worst case scenario, and I talked myself into 11 wins in a best case scenario, but I don't think, I mean, that's everything going right, but no, I'm going under. I'm going 9-3. That was my official prediction for the season. Oklahoma, true road game, road game, first road start at night, SEC for Bryce Underwood. That feels like a huge ask. So I'm going a loss there. While I do have Michigan sort of shocking people in Nebraska, I think that's going to be really close to a pick'em. Nebraska will be 3-0 at that point, and Michigan will go in there without Sherrone Moore. Michigan just rallies so well when they feel slighted in any way, and they will rally around no Sherrone Moore. That will be their best win of the season. Pick that one off. But then a couple weeks later, they go to USC. It is just, 2 times going west in a 3-week span. Actually, I guess there's a bye week built in there, so in a 4-week span, but just away game, home game, away game. When you do play, going to LA is always tough. tough. And I think USC gets some revenge from a game that Michigan just straight up stole in the fourth quarter last year. Speaking of Kalel Mullings. So there's 2 losses. And then Ohio State is a national champion. I mean, I know Michigan fans are going to hate this, but I know last year I said I'm picking Michigan. I'm picking Michigan until I'm wrong. I almost need to go the other way. Like, I need to pick Ohio State until I'm right. Like, one of these times, it's going to be right. Now, a couple of years ago, I mean, I have picked Michigan 2 of the last 3 years, but obviously I didn't last year, and even that didn't work out. So you tend to lean towards Michigan. Michigan obviously has the upper hand in this rivalry. They got the mental edge. They got the scheme of play that works well that time of year, but I didn't keep this quick at all. Sorry. Under 9.5.
Oh, it's tough to run through the whole season quickly. So I would describe it as like there's landmines along the road here. You look at the schedule, you don't have the game at Penn State or at Oregon, right? So that's huge. You don't even play those teams. That's a massive win as far as Big Ten schedule makers. You get Ohio State at home. However, you're playing at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, at USC, at Michigan State. We know how weird that rivalry can get sometimes. And we've talked about a couple times, that game was closer last year than people want to end up remembering. So you never know what could happen up in East Lansing. It gets soft after that with Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. But Ohio State, you feel like at some point they're going to get one of these. You feel like, it's hard to pick against Michigan in that rivalry, but you just feel like somewhere along the way there that I feel like there's going to be 3 losses. And 9-3 with a true freshman quarterback coming off of last year's disappointing season. I mean, I'm not going to say that team probably doesn't make the playoffs just because they'd have to beat probably Ohio State. And then maybe if there's 3 other losses that's outside of that, they might be too bad of losses to get in. So I'm not sure a 9-3 squad gets in this year in a deep top to bottom, a national landscape, but that's darn close to making the playoffs. And I think that's a really successful season.
Very quickly, here's the way 9-3 gets in. The losses are Oklahoma, USC, Nebraska. At Oklahoma, you're not going to be punished for. At Nebraska, maybe Nebraska goes 9-3. It's a road game. You didn't have your head coach. USC, maybe they finish 8-4. None of these are bad losses. They're all on the road. Then you rip off 6 straight wins to finish the season, beat Ohio State on the last day, and then you slide in as the 12th team, or maybe the 11th team, and the 12th team is the G5 team or whatever. You would be leaving too much up to chance, but 9-3 Michigan is not automatically out of this thing by any
It would be a bit of a tough
mind.
sell. I think it'd be close. It'd be darn close, right? You look at last year, some of the kind of like where
It'd be somewhere between 12 and 15.
Right. Look at where South Carolina was last year, similar to like what we just laid out, right? Where you have some awesome wins, some questionable / games you might think they should have won. At the end of the day, you're looking at 9-3, and you're in the committee's hands, right? So that would be, and that's the under case, guys. And if you go by what Vegas tends to think, that's around 50-50 chance they think it could go either way, over or under there. So yeah, I think all things considered, the schedule looks pretty doable for Michigan, and assuming they get improvements from the offense that was abysmal last year, I think it's looking like it's going to be a more fun season for Michigan. So, all right, we're going to take one more quick break, and we're going to go national, look at some fun games, guys. This is one of the most fun week 1s maybe in history. So I can't wait to talk about it on the other side of the break. Welcome back, everyone. We got 6 games here for you guys. We're going to go in order from when they kick off, from Friday, starting with Friday, going to Sunday. And like I said, there's also a game on Monday. It's just as college football-y as college football gets before the NFL gets here on Thursday. Guys, football is here. We couldn't be more excited. And we're going to start with,
let's go.
I know. I can't wait. 2 in-state teams.
So fired up.
Friday, man. I know. I'm so pumped up. It's just, we truly love football. I never complain about football. It can wear you out. I'm just so excited, man. So Western Michigan at Michigan State. Not going to sit here and tell you it's one of the best games of the weekend, but we like to talk about Michigan State and Ohio State on this podcast when we can, because they're familiar faces for you guys. And obviously the water cooler talk of the world. You like to know what's going on in the state here. So the Broncos, they're not one of those teams necessarily that is thought they could maybe make a run to, a BCS bowl like back in the day. Michigan State is just a huge question mark. We really don't know. But the Spartans are favored by 20.5 points. Tony, what is your pick?
I'm taking Western here, the hockey champions of the NCAA, of course. Maybe that translates over to football a little bit. But Michigan State, I think they beat FAU in their opener last year by like less than a touchdown. I don't know if it was FAU, FIU, one of the Florida middling teams. It was like 16-10, 17-13, something like that. It was really low scoring. And now they're supposed to win by 21 in the opener. That's too many. Broncos.
I don't know. I don't like this number. I think it's gone up quite a bit, but I think Michigan State's going to be really motivated to come out and make a statement in this one, right? After last year's Florida Atlantic game that got just kind of dicey at the end, Jonathan Smith in hindsight said he went for too many fourth down conversions at the end of the game. Should have relied on his kicker. Well, now this time they can't rely on their kicker because their kicker situation is a disaster. 2 guys are hurt. The third guy is coming from Davenport University and kicked at Dexter High School. So yeah, it's looking
really,
it's messy. So I think they're going to be going for a lot of fourth down conversions, and I think they're going to be motivated to run the score up a little bit, get some confidence going into what's going to be a huge Boston College game for them. Feels like season defining game in week 2 where you're like, okay, what path are we going on here for the Spartans? So I'm going to take MSU minus 20.5. Like I said, don't feel great about it, but I am going to roll with the Spartans in that one. All right, moving on. Let's get Texas and Ohio State. Obviously, the game everybody has circled, the national champions versus the Longhorns in Columbus. Oh, man. I mean, number 1 versus number 3. I think it's number 1 versus number 2 in the coaches poll, right? So it's as big of a game as you can possibly have, especially in week 1. Man, some new faces too. Julian Sayin, the quarterback at Ohio State. Obviously, you guys know who, if you're listening to this podcast, I figure you're a hard enough Michigan and college football fan. No, Arch Manning is the quarterback for the Longhorns. Tony, Ohio State favored by 2 points. Who are you rolling with?
For the second year in a row, Texas will defeat the defending national champion in one of the first 2 weeks of the season on the road. Last year, they came into Ann Arbor and really just smacked up the Wolverines, obviously, as we all remember. That Michigan team was down. I don't expect Ohio State to be 8-5, but I do expect Texas to be really good. They returned 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line. Edge rusher Trey Moore is coming back. Safety Michael Taaffe is how I always see him on the back of the jersey. I don't know if it's Taffy or Taffy, however you say it. He was an All-American last year. He's really good. This is kind of, and Ohio State graduated 14 NFLers last year, right? We know they're going to be good, but I think they might need a couple weeks to sort of get into it and find themselves. And how many years? Even like back when Ohio State won the national championship, like a decade or so ago, didn't they lose like week 2 to Virginia Tech? And then they had to run the table in order to get back there. I mean, that might have been like 2013 or something. Not 2013, it's early 2010s. But the point is, and you're giving me 2 points. So Ohio State can win this game by a point and I still come, or 2 and I push. So maybe it goes to OT and then it goes into the 2-point shootout and then you're pretty safe.
I'm going to disagree with you here slightly. Obviously, 2-point spread. We all agree this could go either way, but I like Ohio State a little bit more. Some of the top end talent, obviously Jeremiah Smith is the dude. And you got 2 new coordinators on Ohio State as well. But I mean, in a game where it's only 2 points, I'm going to go with the home team. I think that's just enough of an edge. And Ohio State's coming out to defend a national championship here, right? So that stadium is going to be buzzing. You really can't imagine a bigger environment as far as, the first game back in Columbus after a national title against the top, one of the top ranked teams in the country in the Longhorns. So I'm going to go with the fired up Buckeye crowd in Ohio State to take care of business at home. Game number 3, this one, we're just looking at it. It could be a blowout either way. Well, not either way. We think it could be a possible blowout after, years past. Alabama, 13.5 point favorite at Florida State, though, on the road. They got Gus Malzahn down there as the new OC. Totally reflipped it after going 2-10 last year. My brother-in-law goes to school at Florida State. You obviously have some Florida State connections yourself. Man, it couldn't have gone worse last year for the Seminoles. But they kind of flipped the book and as a new look team here. So do we think they have enough to keep it close even against Alabama in year 2 of a new administration?
Yeah, so what Andrew was alluding to is my fiance went to Florida State. And so I would say almost for that reason alone, but also because Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback, is not proven and they're playing at Doak Campbell Stadium, right? I mean, there's just keep it within 2 touchdowns, a late cover, something. I mean, I would get kicked out of my house if I picked Alabama week 1. So we're going with the Noles.
Well, sorry, Lexi. I'm going with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I've seen too many Alabama early season games over the years where they just come out and you're like, God, that's a great helmet matchup. I'm so excited for this game. And they're up by 21 in the first quarter. I don't even think Florida State's going to be as bad as last year. I mean, I don't think they'll be as close to as bad as last year. But man, that's a tall task to start the season. And for a while, it felt like teams stopped booking Alabama to start the year. Like, no, I'm just going to go ahead and pass. We'll see you in the playoff possibly at the end of the year, just because it's just Michigan did it. obviously down at Cowboy Stadium back then, I think it was, now AT&T. It's not a fun way to start the season. And you feel like if one thing goes wrong, it could totally fall apart for Florida State. So I'm going to go with Alabama. And I think I might lay even more points. It'd have to be near like 16 and a half, 17 for me to be really scared of that number.
That's fair. Wisconsin's going to have to deal with that next week. So good luck to the Badgers.
Exactly. And Wisconsin keeps finding themselves in that position too. So they have not learned the lesson like Michigan did quite yet. So, all right. LSU Clemson is the Saturday night game. Like I said, guys, I mean, come on. Does it get better than this? Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, and then LSU Clemson at the same time as Michigan and New Mexico. I mean, good Lord, week one. Thank you. So we're going to go LSU is a 4-point underdog at Clemson. The Battle of Death Valley. Who comes out on top?
I got Clemson. I got the home team. Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is like the anti-Alabama, right? Like LSU is always in an early week one matchup. Like I remember 2 years ago when Florida State went 13-0, they played LSU week one in just an insane shootout. And LSU was favored in that game and Florida State did win it. Feels like LSU loses week one, week two, all the time. Brian Kelly, like, not only is he on the hot seat every year, he like enters it like in September of every year. This year, it's going to be August when people start talking about if Brian Kelly's lost the locker room in LSU. So Cade Klubnik, if he stays healthy, I think either Cade Klubnik or Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver at Ohio State, will be one of those two will win your Heisman Trophy this year. Write it down right now. So I'm going to go with Clemson, even though my ex went to Clemson, if we're talking about that. So I will still pick Clemson.
Insert fart noise.
Fart noise. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm going with Clemson too. I mean, this is a team that is sneakily started to build up a ton of NFL talent, doing it the old school Dabo way. You know, he took a lot of crap over the last few years just by not basically sitting out the transfer portal. He's still going to, I think they've got I think they added a few guys, but still very few. They've Cade Klubnik and just a loaded defensive line. And just, we've seen how many times you need to get Charlie Brown with the football here with Brian Kelly in these week one matchups. You know, it's like, I'm like the Michigan receiver room here. Like, show me before I'm going to pick you, Brian Kelly, in an early season game, because they've whipped it out of our, they've taken the football out and we fall on our backs too many times with LSU. So I'm going with Clemson, and I do really like their talent. And I feel like this could be the setup for them to kind of just roll through the ACC and it be the team that's, right there on basically a playoff lock all season long. If they win this game, it would have to go terribly wrong for them to not make the playoff. So I'm going to go with Clemson here.
Should mention that Garrett Nussmeier is the real deal. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks who could lead a team to a win. It's not that LSU can't, but you said it best. You got to show me. I can't pick you.
Especially on the road. Those other ones have been neutral site, in like Las Vegas, I think. And they might have, two of them might have been in Vegas against, who do they play? 1 year it was Florida State, right? And then last year it was
USC. So they lost 27-20 to USC last year, and they lost 45-24 to Florida State the year before, and they lost 24-23 to Florida State the year before that. I mean, they have lost 3, and they lost 38-27 to UCLA the year before that. I mean, they lose Brian week Kelly one every year.
I don't think Brian Kelly was the coach for the UCLA game. Right. But
it's in the dirty water in Baton Rouge. Okay,
we can probably buzz through this one pretty quick just because the spread is so ginormous. Michigan, New Mexico, the namesake of this podcast, the Wolverines are a 35-point favorite over New Mexico. Tony, who do you like in this one?
Well, last season, Michigan was 6-7 against the spread, and that included going 3-0 in their final 3 games. That means they were 3-7 against the spread in their first 10 games. It was tough. Now it is a new season. There's no doubt about that. But 35 points is a lot. Like, that's a lot of points. And say that Michigan gets up by 5 touchdowns and they want to protect Bryce Underwood. I mean, they're going to get him his reps, but you got to make sure he leaves healthy. Maybe you want to get Jaden Davison in the fourth quarter. Maybe you're working in the too deep of the offensive line. There's just too much room for a backdoor cover, or if you have a slow start. And New Mexico's coach, Jason Eck, I almost couldn't think of his first name. He was the head coach of Idaho last year, and he led Idaho into Oregon last season. And they just it was 24-14 Oregon. as the final. And Oregon was the number one team in the nation going into the college football playoff. Idaho just kept it scrappy. They brought their quarterback from there. They brought their OC from there. So there's a little bit of continuity, even though it's a new look New Mexico team. So, 35 points. I'd feel better if it was 35 in the hook. I thought we were getting the hook earlier, but you corrected me on that. I appreciate it. So, I don't think anyone in Michigan would be upset if Michigan wins this game 48-14. That's an annihilation. That would not be a cover, right? So it's just a lot of points.
A long time ago, I was, when I was first learning about, spreads and college football, I remember reading that, you've got to roll more with the favorites in college football because, 1 through 22, you just have the advantage, and really 1 through 40. You should really have, it's not like the NFL where like the favorites, the defensive end on the team who's, a 2-touchdown underdog could be the best player in the game. That's not really going to happen in this. And Michigan should be better, basically 1 through 22. And the depth is obviously superior too. So over the course of 60 minutes, Michigan wears them down. I'm just going to take the spread and just go and, see if Michigan can really put a pounding on them. Like you said, when it gets up to 35, anything above like 24, 25, or really above 4 touchdowns. So 28, anything above 28, you're basically admitting to yourself that, hey, the backdoor cover is 100% on the board here. But even with that said, I'm going to feel better about myself if I pick Michigan and they don't cover versus, why did I pick New Mexico? Because you should know right away whether if they can rack up those 21 early points, if you got the juice. So, all right, let's finish it off with Notre Dame at Miami, an old school rivalry, Catholics versus convicts. Obviously, anyone who's watched 30 for 30 knows the history there. It's a great old school rivalry. And Miami, another team kind of has that stank on it like LSU, where it's like something seems to always go slightly wrong early in the season. But we're going to go with 2.5 point spread is what it's currently at here at Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. Tony, what's your final pick here?
Yeah, if you want to know what that stank is, it's Mario Cristobal. The guy cannot coach. I think he's got to be the most overrated coach in America. In game. He's a good recruiter and he's a good leader of men. Dude can't coach in game to save his life. Carson Beck transferred in from Georgia. He cheated on one of the Cavender twins. I don't know I think her name's Haley. Bad juju, just bad juju all around it. Yeah. And not to mention, there is just no home field advantage at Hard Rock Stadium, right? It is in the middle of nowhere, Miami Gardens or something. It's like 20 minutes from campus. There's so many other things to do in Miami. I think, and I know this is a top 10 matchup. I think that's on like kind of sex appeal for the brand of Miami. If I was just looking at this roster top to bottom, maybe they'd be like if they had Illinois' helmet, they'd be like 19. You know what I mean? And I think Notre Dame would be like a 4.5 or 5.5 point dog. Winning by a field goal. I feel like Notre Dame does that. It is CJ Carr's first start, former Saline product, who's headed out there. So you worry a little bit about that, but Jeremiah Love could just run over everybody. And so I'm going to go Notre Dame.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the experienced team in Notre Dame who was right there last year and proved that, Marcus Freeman, he's got the juice, man. He knows how to get those guys going, and he's got the X and O's to back it up as well. I agree. I'm going to have to see it with Miami first here. And, even last year with Cam Ward, they were putting up like gazillion points, but it just like, it always screw something up. Really, it was like they end up kind of losing. They lose that game to Syracuse. And I was like, well, that game could have been lost like 10 different times throughout the season. So I don't know. I just don't really believe in where this Miami program is heading. Carson Beck, you think if Georgia really loved Carson Beck that much, they're letting him walk out the door? There's no chance. So that gives me a little bit of a red flag on him as well. So that's an old school mindset of like, oh, you transferred, you quit on your team. That's not where I'm thinking. I'm thinking more so like Georgia has unlimited resources and you're telling me their 5th year senior quarterback, they let walk. Something smells wrong there. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame coming off an unbelievable run of the college football playoff last year to keep the magic going in game 1.
I like it. If people are going to fade us or follow us, just remind everybody about how we finished last year, just so they know who to fade.
We should. I ended up being pretty darn close by the end of the year, thanks to Tony completely crapping the bed. I finished one game under 500, 26-27, which if anyone who knows me is a gambler, they're like, yeah, it sounds about right. I'm usually like slightly losing money. So just so you know, don't necessarily put all your marbles behind me. And Tony was 29-24 after an 0-5 final week. Typical Tony choke, if I don't say so myself.
Well, here's what happened. Nobody could catch me. I mailed it in. I did not do my proper research in that final week, and it cost me. But we were 29-19 in the first 48 games going into that final week when I had a substantial lead on you and Reiner. But it's a new year. It's a new year. The boys are hungry as ever. We got back in the lab, made some tweaks, and we're ready to hold on to the belts again. And 29 and 24 is a profit. I will take any level of profit. Any level.
Gain, not a loss.
That's a good day for me.
Yep, gain, not a loss. All right, everyone. Thank you for sticking around with us this long. We went longer than we wanted to, but it's week one. There's, college football nationally to talk about, which we want to touch on. There was Sherrone's big press conference and so much other stuff we left on the ground floor and just didn't even get to that we could have gone to. So thank you for sticking with us. As always, we're going to be here all season. Like we said, it's only a 12-week season. It's going to fly by. But before you know it, it'll be basketball season. We're going to be here all the way right through April for it all. So it should be an awesome couple months here. Tony, excited to get to talk to you at once a week here going forward, man. I can't wait. And any final thoughts here?
Let's football.
Let's football. As always, thank you to our editor for this podcast, Robin Chan, to the editor-in-chief of the Detroit Free Press, Nicole Avery Nichols, and our sports editor, Bill Bradley, for making it happen and letting us sit down for 2 hours and, shoot the you-know-what to get a podcast up on the air. So, as always, thank you guys to the listeners. Rate and review. If you can, take the time, download the podcast and look for us. And the video is on the top of your Michigan Wolverines articles as well. You'll see the clips up there for sure, too. So, stay with us. We can't wait to cover this New Mexico-Michigan game and so much more. I will talk to you guys next week.